Sham Sharadava Nalalidaloka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalidaloka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Prapta Sakalyana Gurnana Vasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Prapta Sakalyana Gurnana Vasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringara Tanma Niramarjanado Shri Nana Shringara Tanma Niramarjanado Juktasya Bhaktamsa Neyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Chaturvedha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvedha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Kritva Iva Tripti Bhajato Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shirarikama Gabayara Para Madhura Lila Gunarupanamna Shirarikama Gabayara Para Madhura Lila Gunarupanamna Pratikshana Danalalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Ne Kunjayuno Ratikali Siddhai Jayari Veri Jokti Apekshaneya Nikunjayuno Ratikari Siddhai Jayari Veri Jokti Apekshaneya Tatrati daksha ativalabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Tatrati daksha Sakshadharitena Shamasta Shashri Ruktastatava Vyataiva Sadhavi Sakhyari Kintu Pravarja Priyai Bhattasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Dhyayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Dhyayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatari Shatarine Namaste Deve Gauravani Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachatari Shata Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hari Bol Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama Ram Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Rama 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 Hariharaya Namah Krishna Jadavaya Namah Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah Gopal Govindaram Shrimadusudam Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattaraguna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Shri Radha Nila Madhava Radha Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadrama Jaya Sudarshan Chakra Nitai Gaura Haribo Haribo Nitai Gaura Haribo Nitai Gaura Pramanande Hari Bo Jai Vishwapar Paramahansa Prabhajakaracharya Sutara Sarasishima 81 grace of Bhojravina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Pratishta Bhiviti Samstapakachara Vaishnava Siromani Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patita Udhara Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatra Gunata Shri Jiva Gopala Bhattatasa Guna Sadguru Swami Prabhu Ki Jai Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Ananta Kuti Vaishnava Vrindi Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai Jai Param Dayal Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Jai Premanama Sankirtaneka Janaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinandana Shman Gauranga Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Mahavana Avatar Ki Jai Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankirtan Jega Ki Jai Juga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai बृहद निदांग ट्रांसनेटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप कृष्ण राधा कुंश्याम कुंज गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय। श्री ब्रजभूमि वृंदावन मथुरा धाम की जय। The Lordship Shri Shri Radha Nilamadhava ki jai, Shri Mayapur Navadvip Ekachakradham ki jai, Parama Karuna Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Shri Purushottam Ketra Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Sitaram Lakshman Bhakta Hanuman ji ki jai, Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Swami Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan ki jai, Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kanu Shingare Bhagavan ki jai, Jaganga Maya Jamuna Maya ki jai, Tulasi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi ki jai, श्री मथुरा धारानी की जय, समवेत भक्तवृंद की जय, निताय गौर प्रमानंदे। All glory to the Son of God. All glory to the Son of God. All glory to the Son of God. All glory to Shri Guru, Shri Gauranga. Mother is going to lead us in a single prayer. Okay.
Namaste Narasimhaya Praladadaine Hiranyakashipurvakshaha Shilatan Khanakalae
Shilatan Khanakalae
Hito Narsimha Parato Narsimha Yato yato yami tato Narsimha Bahir Narsimha Hridaye Narsimha Narsimha Madim Sharanam Prapade Tava Kara Kamalavare Nakham Adbhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringam Keshavadirta Narhari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Keshavadhirta Narhari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jaya Keshavadhirta Narhari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो नरसिंहदेव जयो भक्त प्रहलाद जयो भक्त प्रहलाद जयो भक्त प्रहलाद जयो प्रहलाद महाराज जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल
श्री भक्ति पद सर्वविघ्नाशनकरी श्रृंगारी भगवान की जय। भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। निताय गौर हरि प्रमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। श्री वृंदाई तुलसी विवाह प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादेवी सतवताय वृंदाई तुलसी विवाह प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादेवी सतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादेवी सतवताय नमो नमः। जय श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाबो यही अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो अभिलाषी।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी
जे तुम्हारा शरण लोए तारा वंचा पूर्ण होए।
तुम्हारा शरणा तारा वंचा पूर्ण।
कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन बासी
कृपा करे तारा करे वृंदावन।
मोरा यही अभिलाष बिलास कुंज दियो बास। नयने हरि बो सदा जुगल रूपरासी ए निवेदन धारो सखीरानुगात करो सेवाधिकारा दिए करो निज दासी। ना कृष्ण दासे कोई जे ना मोरा होए। श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा जे न भासी। श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा जे न भासी। यानी कानी च पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे। यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे।
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayo Tulsi Maharani, Jayo Tulsi Maharani, Jayo Tulsi Maharani, Jayo Tulsi Maharani. Jayo Vrinda Devi, Jayo Vrinda Devi, Jayo Vrinda Devi, Jayo Vrinda Devi. Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol. वृंदा देवी की जय।
श्री वृंदाई तुलसी बाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादे सतवताय नमः। वृंदाई तुलसी बाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादे सतवताय नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादे देवी सतवताय नमः। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of his wishes fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him, make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me residence to play your roles with Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision I will always behold beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Kavadamses of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own servant. This very fallen and lowly servant Krishna prays. May I always feel love Shri Radha and Govind. Shri Mati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shikyastakam ki jai. Chaito Darpanam Majanam Bhavamada Bhavninivapanam Shri Akari Vachandrika Vitaranam Vidya Bhadu Jivanam Ananda Mudivardhanam Padiparam Purnam Nitashvadanam Sarvatmasnam Param Paramijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpita Niyamita Shmaranena Kala Itadrishitava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaiva Midrishamiya Janena Nuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishtana Amanina manadena kirtanya sada hari. Na dhanam na janam na sundarim kavitamba jagadisha kamaye. Mama janmane janmaneshwari bhavatar bhakti rahituki tvai. Oi nandatanu karam paritamam visame bhavam buddho. Kripaya tava pada pankaja stitaduli sadrisham vichintaya. Nayanam galora shrudharaya Badanam gadu gadarudaya gira Ulakai nichitam vapukada Tabanam agrahane bhavishyati Juga itam nimishena Chakusha prabhusa itam Sunya itam jagata sarvam Govinda virahena me Asli shabapa daratam pinas tumam Adarshnar marmahatam karotu va Jata tathava vidadatu lampato Matpranatastu saivana para. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam ki jai. Namo Bhagavanaya Krishna. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully test the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There is not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than straw in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and it should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause that devotes service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I am falling in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and will the hairs on my body stand on end with the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrent rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so. Even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me, he is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri 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 Kirstakam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. Blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider the names of demigods, Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuits of Vedic fashion. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as fruitive activity karma kanda. 9. To instruct the fatherless person about the glories of holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting of the holy names and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be irretentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble blessings unto all the Vaishnavas devoted to the Lord. They are just like desired trees, they can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Varshavana Videvi Deitaya Kripavlaye Krishna Sambhanda Vigyana Daine Prabhave Namaha Madhu Jojala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktira Shri Gaurakarna Shakti Vigrahaya Namaste Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinadayane Rupanuga Viruddhasantam Svantahayane Nama Om Vikshuraya Satchaveda Gyamurtaye Vipralambhana Sambodhe Paramajayate Nama Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchidanandamani Gurashakti Swarupaya Rupanamugavadayate Guravidhava Gunistam
Nidesta Sajjana Kriya Vaishnava Sarvabhuma Sri Janataya Te Namaha Vischa Kripa Sindhu
Paritanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Namo Bhavanayo Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaurashe Namaha Panchatattvamakam Krishna Bhaktarupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakti Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Suratopango Mama Mandala Kirtani
Matsaraswapadam Bojo Radha Madana Mohana Divyat Bindaranya Kalpa Jumadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simhasana Stito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Kristali Bihi Sevyamannam Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasarambi, Sivata Tatastitam, Karsan Venus Swaner Gopir, Gopinatak Striestinam, Tapta Kanchana Kurangi, Ade Vrindavaneshwari, Vishabhanustate Devi, Pranamami Hari Priye, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Panchatattva Maha Mantra ki jai. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is always accompanied by his plenary expansion, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, his incarnation, Sri Advaita Prabhu, his internal potency, Sri Gadadhara Prabhu, and his marginal potency, Sri Vas Prabhu. He is in the midst of them as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should know that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is always accompanied by these other tattvas. Therefore, our obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are complete when we say, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. As preachers of the Krishna consciousness movement, we first offer our obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by chanting this Panchatattva mantra, and then we say, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There are 10 offenses in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, but these are not considered in the chanting of the Panchatattva mantra, namely, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is known as Mahavadanya, the most magnanimous incarnation, for he does not consider the offenses of the fallen souls. Thus, to derive the full benefit of the chanting of the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, we must first take shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, learn the Panchatattva mantra, and then chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. That will be very effective. Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The transcendental vibration established by the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is the sublime method of reviving our Krishna consciousness. As living spiritual souls, we are all originally Krishna conscious entities, but due to our association with matter from time immemorial, our consciousness is now polluted by the material atmosphere. The material atmosphere in which we are now living is called Maya, or illusion. Maya means that which is not. And what is this illusion? The illusion is that we are all trying to be lords of material nature, while actually we are under the grip of her stringent laws. When a servant artificially tries to imitate the all-powerful master, this is called illusion. In this polluted concept of life, we are all trying to exploit the resources of material nature, but actually we are becoming more and more entangled in her complexities. Therefore, although we are engaged in a hard struggle to conquer nature, we are ever more dependent on her. This illusory struggle against material nature can be stopped at once by revival of our Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is not an artificial imposition on the mind. This consciousness is the original energy of the living entity. When we hear the transcendental vibration, this consciousness is revived. And this process, the transcendental vibration, is chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. When we hear the transcendental vibration, this consciousness is revived, and this process is recommended for this age by authorities. By practical experience also, one can perceive that by chanting this Mahamantra, or the great chanting for deliverance, one can at once feel a transcendental ecstasy coming through from the spiritual stratum. And when one is factually on the plane of spiritual understanding, surpassing the stages of senses, mind, and intelligence, one is situated on the transcendental plane. This chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is directly enacted from the spiritual platform, and thus the sound vibration surpasses all lower strata of consciousness, meaning sensual, mental, and intellectual. There is no need, therefore, to understand the language of the mantra, nor is there any need for mental speculation or any intellectual adjustment for chanting this Mahamantra. It springs automatically from the spiritual platform, and as such, anyone can take part in the chanting without any previous qualification and dance in ecstasy. We have seen this practically. Even a child can take part in the chanting, or even a dog can take part. It takes a little more time to come to the standard point, but even such a materially engrossed man is raised to the spiritual platform very quickly. When the mantra is chanted by a pure devotee of the Lord in love, it has the greatest efficacy on the hearers, and as such, this chanting should be heard from the lips of a pure devotee of the Lord, so that immediate effects can be achieved. As far as possible, chanting from the lips of non-devotees should be avoided. Milk touched by the lips of a serpent has poisonous effects. The word Hara is the form of addressing the energy of the Lord, and the words Krishna and Rama are forms of addressing the Lord himself. Both Krishna and Rama mean the supreme pleasure, and Hara, or Srimati Radharani, is the supreme pleasure energy of the Lord, changed to Hare in the vocative. The supreme pleasure energy of the Lord helps us to reach the Lord. The material energy called Maya is also one of the multi-energies of the Lord, and we, the living entities, are also the energy, marginal energy of the Lord. The living entities are described as superior to material energy. When the superior energy is in contact with the inferior energy, an incompatible situation arises. But when the superior marginal energy is in contact with the superior energy, called Hara, the living entity is established in its happy, normal condition. These three words, namely Hare, Krishna, and Rama, are the transcendental seeds of the Mahamantra. The chanting is a spiritual call for the Lord and his internal energy, Hara, to give protection to the conditioned soul. This chanting is exactly like the genuine cry of a child for its mother. Mother Hara helps the devotee achieve the grace of the Supreme Father, Hari, or Krishna, and the Lord reveals himself to the devotee who chants this mantra sincerely. No other means of spiritual realization, therefore, is as effective in this age as chanting the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So there are some amazing points in this statement made by Prabhupada. I just want to go over one today. I'll go over several of them in the next couple of days. It says, by practical experience also, one can perceive that by chanting this Mahamantra, or the great chanting for deliverance from what? Deliverance from ignorance of the material conception of life. And we're going to explain in much more detail what that material conception is, but as a general summary of it, it's the idea that sense gratification is the goal of life. So, when we hear the transcendental vibration, this consciousness is revived. And this process is recommended in today's. By practical experience also, one can perceive that by chanting this Mahamantra, or the great chanting for deliverance, one can at once feel a transcendental ecstasy coming through from the spiritual stratum. And when one is factually on the plane of spiritual understanding, surpassing the stages of senses, mind, and intelligence, one is situated on the transcendental plane. That this is a major statement made by Prabhupada. Basically, he's saying even a person who comes for the first time to Krishna consciousness and witnesses and engages in chanting with the devotees, it could be on Sankirtan, or it can be in a temple, or it can be anywhere, they feel this a certain type of happiness or blissfulness, and this is not. He's calling it transcendental ecstasy coming through from the spiritual stratum. So that's a big statement, and also it's also stated that this holy name of Krishna, the Mahamantra Hare Krishna, was brought down from the spiritual world by Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. Golokera Premadana Harinama Sankirtana. So they brought it down from Goloka, Vrindavan, to the material world. So anyone who engages in chanting in the association of devotees, that's the important point, they will also feel, even if they come for the first day in their life and experience the Harinam Sankirtan or Harinam chanting, they will also feel this bliss. It's a spiritual experience. And then when they become more, let's say, practiced to chanting, then what happens? And when one is factually on the plane of spiritual understanding, surpassing the stages of sense, mind, and intelligence, one is situated on the transcendental plane. In other words, one is elevated to the point where they're actually experiencing this bliss continually in their life. So that's a very important point. And what is it saying exactly? It's saying that the devotees should regularly come to perform Harinam Sankirtan in the temple and outside also. Because when a large group of devotees are chanting ecstatically the holy names, other people can immediately experience this transcendental bliss coming from the spiritual world. And that's why, like on a Sunday feast program, very few devotees come earlier in the program. But the room is filled with usually new people, and very few devotees are present. It's just myself chanting or someone else chanting. But if the whole, or if a large congregation of initiated devotees come and chant, then anyone who comes into the room will immediately feel the transcendental potency of the holy name and join in and dance in ecstasy. These are all ways of helping people become Krishna conscious. But if we're too engrossed in our own little lives and we don't understand how to preach and influence people, then the potential of having such a temple, the potential of the holy name, the potential of the deities is diluted by the nonchalance of the devotees. Everyone should be present, at least on a Sunday night, from the beginning of the program, which usually starts around 5:30, and goes on till 8:30. And there should be ecstatic chanting going on. And so when people come in, they actually experience it. And that has a electrical influence on their lives. And when they experience even once the bliss of chanting Hare Krishna, they become convinced that I should come back more, and I didn't have to take any drugs. There was no stimulation, artificial stimulation. This was a natural thing that happened. I actually experienced bliss, because it's coming from, as Prabhupada says, the spiritual stratum. Okay, so today we're going to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, verse number 24. Srijami tapasai vedam grasami tapasa puna bibarmi tapasa vishvam viryam me ducharam tapa. Srijami, I create. Tapasa, by the same energy of penance. Eva, certainly. Idam, this. Grasami tapasa. Grasami tapasa. I do withdraw also by the same energy. Puna, again. Bibarmi, do maintain. Tapasa, by penance. Vishwam, the cosmos. Viryam, potency. Me, my. Duscharam, severe. Tapa, penance. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. I create this cosmos by such penance. I maintain it by the same energy, and I withdraw it all by the same energy. Therefore, the potential power is penance only. That's a very important verse, if we can understand it, although it's in very plain, simple English. But Krishna is explaining here to Brahma that the same thing that he inspired Brahma to do, that is, when Brahma heard Krishna say tapa, although he couldn't see Krishna, but he understood what it meant. Because Brahma was existing, this is not his first appearance in the material world. He had many previous lives in the material world, but by attaining a very high level of perfection, he was given the opportunity to become Brahma. It's still a material desire to be a controller and a progenitor of an entire universe. But by dovetailing that desire into Krishna's service, and how do we dovetail our desires, our material desires, into Krishna's service? We offer the results of that desire to Krishna by following the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness, and therefore we develop detachment. But by pleasing Guru and Krishna, we become spiritually advanced, even though it all started with a material desire. So anything that touches fire will burn, and anything that touches Krishna and Krishna consciousness will purify. That's just the transcendental nature of Krishna consciousness and spirituality, real spirituality. So here in this verse, after the example of Brahma, who engages in tapasya for a very, very long time, and then finally Krishna reveals himself and reveals Vaikuntha to Brahma and gives him the knowledge by which he can actually become the secondary creator of the material, of an entire universe, and be the manager of it. So he had that desire in his heart to be a supreme controller, supreme, he doesn't surpass Krishna, but at least in the material world, in relationship to all other living entities, he's the supreme, let's say, Ishwara. He is an Ishwara, a controller of material nature. He's not the supreme controller, but he is the number one in the limited frame of one universe. So anyway, Krishna now is saying, look, I follow the same principle. I create this cosmos, this whole universe, by such penance. Penance is voluntary acceptance of discomfort and travails in order to achieve a Krishna conscious goal. So he says, I create this cosmos by such penance. I maintain it by the same energy, and I withdraw it all by the same energy. Therefore, the potential power is penance only. Now let's hear the purport of Prabhupada. It's a very short purport, but he makes several huge points in it. He says, in executing penance, one must be determined to return home back to Godhead. And one must decide to undergo all types of tribulations for that end. Even for material prosperity, name and fame, one has to undergo severe types of penance. Otherwise, no one can become an important figure in this material world. Well, that's a fact. See, anybody who wants to become famous, well-known, they might write books, or they might climb Mount Everest, or they might go up in SpaceX into space and pay several $1 million to do it. Or, they become distinctive. They develop an experience that maybe nobody else has been able to do. Or they can be an Olympic runner and beat everybody else in the race, or they can be in the NASCAR race and win the race, and all that is tapasya or penance. Or they can be a basketball player and put the big ball in the net. Or they can be a soccer player and be able to put the ball in the net. Or they can be a baseball player and they hit home runs, right? So, but to do that, they have to do a lot of exercise. They can be a football player, they can be a soccer player, they can be a tennis player. They all develop some extraordinary power. Or they can be a big businessman or a famous scientist. It's all based on penance or tapasya, denying oneself mundane, let's say, pleasures. Like, for example, you want to pass a test, you can't go to a party and party the night before. You have to study for it, right? And in order to study for it properly, you would have to have taken part in all the classes and taken notes and done all the homework, and then therefore you don't have to stay up all night cramming for the test, because you've already assimilated the knowledge and you can recognize the patterns in order to solve the questions. So, or answer the questions. So here we see, even for material prosperity, name and fame, one has to undergo severe types of penance. Otherwise, no one can become an important figure in this material world. Why then are there severe types of penance for the perfection of devotional service? He's asking a question. An easygoing life and attainment of perfection in transcendental realization cannot go together. So, anyone who says, oh, I'm going to sleep in today, or I'm going to take it a little bit slow today because I've been doing too much service. Hari Vilas is engaging us too much. We've got to have a little bit of respite or rest and have some recreation and take a vacation. So here, what does Prabhupada say? He says, an easygoing life and attainment of perfection and transcendental realization cannot go together. They're not going to be, let's say, compatible. They're incompatible. And an easygoing life and attainment of perfection and transcendental realization cannot go together. Well, we have this example of Prabhupada himself. He went through so much trouble to establish Krishna consciousness in the Western world, as his guru wanted him to do. At one point, the leading devotees in the movement, this is in the early days, in the early 1970s, they turned against Prabhupada. They tried to get him expelled from the United States. There's so many things happen. It's unbelievable. If you carefully understand and read the development of Krishna consciousness, there were times when the devotees were against Prabhupada, working against him. Not all of them, that's for sure, but some of the leaders. And then he made them sannyasis. And he told them, now you do like me. You start traveling around. Don't stay in one place and plot how to get rid of me. You start traveling around and spread Krishna consciousness, right? And then they were forced to leave the United States and go either to India or other places and trying to establish temples, right? Because by being together and being influenced by some envious people in the Gaudiya Math, they tried to get rid of Prabhupada. And they started making up statements that are false about Prabhupada. So anyway, here we say, an easygoing life and attainment of perfection and transcendental realization cannot go together. The Lord is more clever than any living entity. Therefore, he wants to see how painstaking the devotee is in devotional service. Now, this is an interesting word, painstaking. What does that mean? Well, it means that one is employing great care and thoroughness in the execution of their duties. Great care and thoroughness. That's the definition of painstaking. So he says, the Lord is more clever than any living entity. Therefore, he wants to see how painstaking. It doesn't mean you stab yourself with a knife or something like that. It's not the meaning of painstaking. It's how thorough and how careful you are in following the rules and regulations and the services that you're being given by the devotees or directly from Prabhupada. It's just like Prabhupada was very painstaking and thorough in preparing himself to preach in the English-speaking world. That was his order by his guru in the first 30 seconds or minute that he met his guru in 1922, and again in 1936 before his, in the month of December, he sent a letter to his guru and said, you know, what kind of service can I do for you? I'm just a grihasta. You're surrounded by all these big sannyasis. I'm not on their level, but what kind of service? And again, he said, if you can preach in the Western world in the English language, that'll be very good. And that's exactly what Prabhupada did. It took him 40 years, but he did it. And he did it very successfully because of his determination. And as we explained yesterday, after he took sannyas, he was bored by a bull in Vrindavan. He almost died. He ended up flat on his back in the hospital. And he was thinking, maybe I made a mistake leaving my family. But then he firmed up his mind and said, no, I'm gonna actually do everything I can to please my Gurudev. And then he did not give up. And then coming to America, as you all know, he had 2 heart attacks, but he didn't give up. And he was protected by Krishna. And then, I'm telling you, at one point, some of the leading devotees in the movement turned against him. And one of them complained to the immigration authorities, and Prabhupada couldn't come to the United States for almost 1 year. Right? So he stayed in Montreal, which was not far from the United States, until he got his visa back so he could come. So we see he went through a lot of trouble, continually. And he had to deal with many issues, deviations that the devotees sometimes did, and kept everything on track. One time he dissolved the GBC because they made some very inappropriate decisions. So if you read the history, you'll see he did not have an easy life. He was constantly harassed by his godbrothers, by devotees doing crazy things, and so forth. But he didn't give up. So The Lord is more clever than any living entity. Therefore, he wants to see how painstaking the devotee is in devotional service. How careful, how thorough, how observant and following of the rules and regulations and the execution of duties the devotee is in devotional service. The order is received from the Lord, either directly or through the bona fide spiritual master. And to execute that order, however painstaking, is the severe type of penance. One who follows the principle rigidly is sure to achieve success in attaining the Lord's mercy. So, what are we talking about here? We're talking about devotees who actually want to spread the movement, not devotees who TK, I'm very snug and happy in my little ashram, and I would just, not overexert myself, blah, blah, blah. No. The devotees who actually want to spread the movement, they have to go through a lot of trouble. It's not easy to spread this movement, especially in the atmosphere that we're living in. This is Kali Yuga, when people are against this. They're preaching against it. That it's religion is not good. Organized religion is not good. I follow my spirituality, but privately in my own bedroom, and I don't need to be part of any movement. A lot of people think like that now, right? But that didn't stop Prabhupada. And when he came to America, he could see, my God, these people are so much in Maya. How am I? If I start telling them, give up illicit sex, give up intoxication, they'll tell me, thank you very much, Swami. Now you can go back to India. We're not interested. He actually said that in a lecture. He said he didn't think it was going to succeed because the people were so contaminated. But yet, because of his determination, because of his purity, because of his affection, because of his complete surrender to his Guru's instructions, he was able to do it, although not one of the other almost 10,000 devotees that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur initiated, not one of them was able to do it. Prabhupada was able to do it. He had, I think, close to 10,000 disciples. And some of them were very highly educated, very, very strict followers, and very good preachers, but they were not able to crack that nut of spreading throughout the world. Prabhupada was able to do it because of his absolute determination to strictly follow his Guru's instructions. Just another example, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did not appoint a successor. He wanted the Gaudiya Math to manage the movement in a collegial way, that is, form a GBC body. They didn't do it. They went back to the old system, but because they couldn't agree who was the most prominent devotee, who's actually the purest devotee to become the next acharya, they decided, well, we'll all become acharyas. We'll all have our own mat, our own temple, and our own disciples, and it will be a very, very, very loose confederation called the Gaudiya Math. That's why they did preaching, there's no doubt about it. They did make some disciples, but they were not able to spread outside of India. And even in India, there was mild success, definitely. They're actually devotees. They're not demons, but they were not able to have a significant impact, although they did make devotees and they did maintain their temples. But they divided. They said everyone's an acharya who can open a temple and convince people to become devotees. So they didn't follow that one very fundamental instruction. But Prabhupada did. He formed the GBC, and he trained the devotees to work in a collegial way and not in the acharya way. In other words, everyone is a acharya and has their own temples and own disciples. Okay, so one who follows the principle rigidly is sure to achieve success in attaining the Lord's mercy. So this is actually a paraphrase of a statement by Sanatana Goswami, who said that the success is guaranteed for the rigid practitioner. that's in the Bhagavad Gita. Let me see if I can find it real quick. So are there any questions about this verse? While I look for this quote. Any questions? Okay, then we will go on to the next verse. Let me just see if this is it. 347. Okay, so 6th chapter, 36th verse says, "For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. But he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion." So this is Krishna speaking. And then in the purport it says, "Unless one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, he cannot steadily control the mind. A Krishna conscious person achieves the result of yoga practice without separate endeavor, but a yoga practitioner cannot achieve success without becoming Krishna conscious." Okay, anyway, it is a statement by Sanatana Goswami. Let me see if I look somewhere else. Okay, I'll have to come back to this. Anyway, he said, success is guaranteed for the rigid practitioner. Okay, so I wanted to discuss something else. The other day, I did go over what's called the material conception of life. And in this booklet that I've written, and I've spoken about this before, but I explained this little booklet I've written called Scientific Spirituality. And it explains the difference between spiritual science and religion. Religion is a type of faith. Spiritual science is concerned with verifiable facts that are irrefutable. Verifiable facts that are irrefutable, right? And I sort of read through it very quickly. But I want to come back to this because it's a very important point. So in the meantime, I did a little bit more writing and research. And there are actually a lot more verifiable facts that I missed when I wrote this, and now I'm going to complete it. But the first verifiable fact is the following discussion presents facts of life that are the foundation of scientific spirituality. These facts point to the commonality of human beings and their unique origin from a personal supreme intelligent being, or God. Point 1. Every human being, regardless of his race, gender, religion, ethnicity, and experiences, ethnicity, etc., experiences birth, old age, disease, and death. So that's first point, irrefutable fact. No one can argue against it. Number 2, there are 6 stages of the body: birth, growth, duration of life, producing byproducts, dwindling, and death. Nobody can argue against that. Number 3, all human beings have 4 fundamental defects. They make mistakes, they easily fall into illusion, they have imperfect senses, and they have a cheating propensity. Maybe somebody who might try and argue against it, but they will not succeed. Number 4, all living entities suffer from 3 types of miseries: miseries of this body, miseries caused by other bodies, miseries caused by catastrophic events. No one will deny that. So what is the point? Now, so far I've read 4, but if a person keeps agreeing with what's being said here, because these are self-evident facts, right? They keep agreeing, yes, 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 yes. And then you say, and it's perfectly clear that there is a superior intelligence in the universe. Yes. And eventually, because they kept saying yes, 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 when you say there is a God, they're going to say yes. You see, because they agreed with everything else. They couldn't deny it. When you go through a list, a litany of, or a cascade of positive responses, and all leading up to a general, general conclusion that there is a supreme intelligence, and his name is Krishna, who is the possessor of 6 opulences in full, etc., etc. When then you get into the whole science of Krishna, but you have to lead up to that through a long process of yeses, of agreement, and so that's why there has to, and this is called empirical knowledge. This is empirical knowledge. It's something that they can perceive with their senses. It's measurable, and you cannot argue against it. See? This is the way to convince people that God exists. And once you become an expert at doing this, then you can make many, many devotees. So then it says, number 5, every living being eats, sleeps, mates, and defends. Number 6, all human beings experience 3 stages of consciousness: being awake, the dreaming state, and deep sleep. Number 7, there are 4 ways a living being can be born: from embryos, eggs, seeds, and perspiration. Number 8, all human beings experience time as past, present, and future. Number 9, everyone is subject to duality in their life, such as heat and cold, happiness and distress, rich and poor, honor and dishonor, love and hate, friend and enemy, etc. And then number 10, human beings are always dependent and controlled by superior forces such as time, nature, governments, etc. No person has complete independence. We do not control our digestion, blinking of eyes, breathing, and so many other vital functions of the body, as well as vital functions of the universe on which we depend for our life, such as the movement of the sun, earth, tides, etc., the changing of the seasons. No one can remember choosing to be born in a particular body or place. All the vital processes of life and different causal situations we find ourselves in are outside our conscious control. This indicates that we are in a dependent position at all times. I don't think people could argue against that if it's explained. And also, it says there's also hurricanes, tornadoes, volcanoes, viruses, and so many other things that are out of our control, but they control us, right? And also, there is yes, there's so many. I won't go into all those details, but there are many things that prove that we are always dependent. Right? Like, for example, if there's an explosion of the sun, everyone would die right away in the whole universe. Everything would be finished. The universe is heating up and warming us and producing life situations. In fact, if you study the Brahma Jyoti, you'll see it's made up of infinite number of living entities that are like pencils of light. It is not just light. It is not just heat. There are jivas, and that just proves how powerful the jiva is, right? It is the source of life, and it's spreading all over the material universe, and it's coming from the spiritual universe, and it's coming from Krishna's body. People don't understand. Einstein understood to a certain degree the value of sunlight, and that's why he made his theory of relativity and his idea of 4 dimensions in space. He added time to length, width, and height, the 3 dimensions that we live in, and he added the 4th dimension of time, and he came up with his general theory of relativity from that. So, but that was by studying light, by studying the sunlight. He got all these ideas. And of course, he built up on what was already, philosophized or mathematically, let's say, evident from other, scientists and researchers. He was able to interpret it in a different way, or in a more thorough way. So anyway, and then number 11, all living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are provided by a process of nature. The sun evaporates water from the ocean and forms clouds, which are moved by wind and subtle changes of temperature and pressure that causes the clouds to rain on the land. These processes are not controlled by human beings, but we depend on them completely. Then there is also the material body that we have is overcast by 5 kinds of material conditions. What are they? 1, the material conception of life. 2, attachment. 3, hatred. 4, absorption. And 5, ignorance. This can be further understood as lust, ignorance, greed, anger, and pride. So these are things that Prabhupada says overcast and the material body with 5 kinds of material conditions that keeps us conditioned in the material world. And then again, there's also 5 types of ignorance that everyone is subject to. That first one is the identifying with the body and not with the soul. The second is the sense of death and fear. The third is anger after frustration. The fourth is the sense of false ownership. And fifth is think life's goal is sense gratification. So all these things condition us to think that we are a product of material nature. And because of that, we don't make any attempt to free ourselves from the cycle of birth and death. So then, number 12 is, there are 5 gross elements and 3 subtle elements that constitute the body. They are earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. The above 8 are expanded in more detail to 24. 5 gross elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, or space. 5 senses for gathering information, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. 5 objects of the information gathering senses, which are seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and touching. 5 working senses are the arms, legs, voice, genital, and anus. The mind is a sense within because it receives the information from the other senses and stores them in the memory. The intelligence differentiates the information acquired by the senses and attributes values such as this is good and this is bad. This is good for now and the future, and this is bad now and in the future. The false ego wrongly identifies the self with matter. If there's a false ego, there's also a real ego, where one identifies with the soul and not with matter. There is an unmanifest stage of matter, wherein the time element and the influences of the 3 qualities that condition every living being no longer acts. But when the time element and the influences of the 3 qualities begin to act, then that unmanifest stage becomes manifest, and it's called the Mahat Tattva, the entire material nature. Okay, so then it says, this is summarized as 5 gross material elements, 5 senses for gathering information, 5 objects of the information gathering senses, 5 working senses, mind, intelligence, false ego, and the unmanifest stage of matter. There are 24 basic components of this world. The aggregate of these 24 elements is called the field of activity. There is also desire, hatred, happiness, and distress, which are interactions that may be considered representations of the 5 great elements in the gross body. The living symptoms, represented by consciousness and convictions, are the manifestation of the subtle body made up of the mind, intelligence, and false ego. The 5 great elements are gross representations the gross representation of the false ego, which in turn represents the unmanifested stage of the three modes of material nature. The unmanifested modes of material nature are called pradhana. The body is a representation of all these factors. The body is an impermanent thing. So it's very hard to argue against these things. They might try on certain points, especially when we mention the soul. But otherwise, they can't argue against the description of the body, right? And then number 13, although animals and humans eat, sleep, mate, and defend alike, some humans are more intelligent than animals because they can use their intelligence to understand their factual position in respect to the universe. The following 6 steps of logical thinking represent superior human intelligence. Now, I read this the other day, so I'm not going to read that again, but the 6 steps to understand that there is a superior intelligence in the world. But then, to give an example of this, in other words, to give an example that nothing, because point number 5 of the 6 steps to understanding that there's a superior intelligence in the world, number 5 says that nothing can move without an intelligent person behind it. Now, that is difficult. That could be argued against. But when we give an example, then no one can argue against it. And the example is called OOPS, Object-Oriented Programming, which is a creative process. So, object-oriented process for software development, OOPS. It is said in the Bible that man is made in the image of God. This statement implies that by carefully studying ourselves, we can understand many things about God. We can use such a process to begin to understand the mystery and complexity of the universe. A question that has always fascinated man is, how did this universe come about? There are many speculative theories about the origin of the universe. One that is invoked today is called the Big Bang theory. Rather than imagine something that we can never prove definitively, it is better to begin with our own experience and rational sense to understand the mystery of creation. One glaring anomaly of modern scientific theories that attempt to explain the origin of the universe is that they claim that there is no intelligent person guiding it. Man is developing new inventions every day. One example of this is the creation or development of a computer program. A popular methodology used by major software corporations for computer program creation is called object-oriented programming, also known as OOPS. A careful analysis of this methodology will reveal that creation is not something that takes place by accident or without superior intelligent guidance. No one who knows about OOPS would dare say that the creation of a computer program happens randomly without the guidance of an intelligent person or persons. With this said, we can analyze all the complicated steps required to create a computer program. The purpose of OOPS is to employ a rational methodology that can avoid or quickly correct mistakes of logic or design in the process of program development. OOPS requires that each stage of development must be rigorously verified to be free of mistakes of logic or design before going to the next stage. The creation of a computer program begins by defining a problem. When there is a problem, there is a desire to find a solution. A program manager will consult experts in different disciplines that are related to the problem. The expert consultants will brainstorm possible solutions and present their conclusions to a core group of programming experts under the guidance of a project manager. The project manager is responsible to create a functional specification for the features of the product, and each proposed solution is evaluated based on the following factors. 1, the feasibility of solving problems based on computer science. 2, resource constraints such as manpower, money, time. 3, review of competitors. 4, study existing market competition. Determine how to differentiate the new product. If necessary, hire an outside company to do market research to determine What specifications of a new product will appeal to the public demand? And last, make sure the new product aligns with the overall strategy of the company. The solution that best corresponds to the above factors is chosen to produce a new product. Then the expert consultants concentrate their efforts to make it operational. 1. The first step after the determination is to define the functional specification for all features of the solution. The team comes up with a high-level design of the solution. The program manager or team leader creates a plan how each particular feature of the solution will work. In other words, the OOPS process begins with intelligent people who define a problem and use their rational powers to find a solution. Right from the beginning of the creation or development, there is guided intelligence without any trace of accident, hazard, or random combinations. Each step is guided by intelligent decision-making of a team of experts. In a typical software program, there may be from 3,000 or more functions or features. Let us examine just one feature of the Internet Explorer, Microsoft, or MS-DOS, I guess. In this program, there is the tool option. When you mouse over it, there is a drop-down window that shows a menu option called the pop-up blocker. If you mouse over or click on it, you will see two options from which to choose. The first option is to turn on or off the pop-up blocker. If you turn it on, you can proceed with the second option. This feature permits you to choose a particular website whose pop-up you can accept, whereas all others are blocked. There are many features like the pop-up one in the Internet Explorer MS. Once the functional specifications are created, there will be a review meeting where all the stakeholders of the product will examine the functions specifications. The meeting will be attended by the product manager, software architects, the development manager, the development lead, the test manager, and the senior developers. The program manager's responsibility is to convince all the stakeholders that this feature or functionality should be implemented as part of the final product. This is an example of a very minor feature or one feature of a program. Next, the next step, the development manager or lead will work with a product architect to create an architecture and design document. These are technical documents. The architect already has an overall product design, which is the big picture. He knows the product's ecosystem, or how everything works together. He understands how the feature will impact the entire system. The architect updates the architect's document or creates one. Once this is completed, the software development or lead will create the design of that particular feature. Now the architecture document or specification and the design document are both ready for review. Next, a meeting of the stakeholders will be called to make a review of the design and architecture. It will go on until everyone is convinced. If necessary, 1 and 2 can be repeated again for other features that integrate with the one in question. After everything is done and everyone is satisfied intellectually that the feature or features are ready for the next step, the implementation phase begins. Next, in the implementation phase or stage, the developers take the design document and start coding using computer language. Once the coding is completed, there is a code review of the implementation, which is a very rigorous and tedious process. Even though this system of checks and balances is so thorough, any software consultant will admit that there has never been a new system that has been launched without bugs. In fact, there has never been a bug-free software. Every man-made program is only near perfect. Software companies continually upgrade their programs to eliminate defects, but the upgrades often create new defects and unforeseen issues. After the code review is completed, the test phase begins. The test or quality control engineers will perform many different types of testing, such as functional, integration, performance, stability, and reliability. These are called high-level categories. If the tests certify that the feature is ready for launch, then it goes to the next phase. What we have detailed is the process that is followed for only one feature, there can be a minimum of 3,000 features in a typical program. Once all the features are completed, they are bundled into the build, which means the features are grouped together to form a product. DVDs are created of the build and given to manufacturers who will label or brand the product with a catchy name and obfuscate or confuse the arrangement of the internal structure of the binary files so that the other software pirates cannot do reverse engineering of the programs. When this step is completed, the advertisement, business deals, marketing, and launch date are organized to go public with the product. After each launch of a new product, there's a post-mortem evaluation of what went well and what did not. This evaluation examines the resource, service, and process gaps. In conclusion, OOPS is a structured approach to solving a problem by creating a software program. It has many checks and balances in place to ensure that the program functions exactly the way the end user would like it to perform. At every step of the process, intelligent persons are required to advance it. Nothing is left to hazard or random combinations and permutations. In other words, the whole process from start to finish is intelligence driven by highly educated persons whose conscious intervention keeps the process moving coherently and according to a design plan. Creation of a system that orders matter with function and design requires intelligence and guidance at every step. It is not a random process that happens haphazardly without the intervention and guidance of intelligent persons. Anyone who is engaged in a creation and development project knows irrefutably that chance, random permutations, and combinations would never result in a finished product that satisfies the end user and functions in a predictable way. However, when educated persons speak about the creation of the universe, they develop a selective amnesia and make claims that the universe developed without the intervention of a supremely intelligent being. Their own experience in life contradicts such a conclusion. Man is made in the image of God. He is a secondary creator. God creates the primary elements, and man can rearrange them to create functional objects. Both types of creation, primary and secondary, require an intelligent being to produce a functionally designed object that works predictably. Conclusion. Scientific spirituality is a collection of facts that are undeniable for the honest observer. These facts point to the common experience of every human being, regardless of their ethnicity, religion, bias, etc. They override any superficial differences that might be postulated by religious beliefs, nationalistic or political rhetoric, and other speculative philosophical thoughts. Ultimately, these verifiable facts indicate that we must seek out specific knowledge of our relationship with the superior intelligent being who is ordering and maintaining the universe and who is the origin of all species of life and varieties of matter. Haribol. So, it's a little long, but you get the idea. It is possible to prove the existence of God in a scientific way. Now, this is just a little attempt at it, but if we develop this, then it's very hard for people to argue against it. Because the examples given are examples that they are doing themselves on a daily basis. And it's all intelligence driven. There's nothing that's created that happens by random combinations or by accident or by some kind of coincidence. Everything is planned. Everything is planned in Microsoft, right? Or in Amazon. So you don't think the whole universe is planned? And everything is controlled by checks and balances, right? You don't think there's checks and balances in the universe? Everything is random? It's crazy thought. And once people hear something like this, it gives them second thought. That, wait a minute, maybe we got this all wrong. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
624 is where that
Oh, okay.
success is sure for the rigid practice.
Right. Okay, I was at 636. Okay, good. Success is sure for the rigid practitioner, right? Good. Thank you for that. I would have found it eventually, but I didn't want to take the time. But that's good. Thank you. Yeah.
That resembles more the software development life cycle, as we call it.
Yeah.
Like that's SDLC. Because OOPS is more like a programming concept with polymorphism, inheritance. So that's.
Well, then you can help me correct this.
Yes, Maharaj. Yeah.
I think wherever you are referring to the books, we need to use a different phrase. It's the whole software development life cycle.
Okay. All right. Well,
Who helped?
it was what's his name? It was. Anyway, he went. Now he's in Texas. He left a long time ago. You know what I'm talking about, right? What's his name?
I don't remember. He was here.
No, his name was. Huh? Who? No, no. I'll think of it.
But overall, it's summarizing very well.
Everything else is perfect. Just how that
Well, I want to make it perfect because.
And Maharaj, we can also add the cloud aspect of it also. Like,
Okay.
there's a little bit of difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Why not? This is thing that people are intellectual people are dealing with every day, right? But yet they say that everything happened with a big bang and there's no God. You see how crazy they are?
It is very. They also promote the chaos theory and all, right? And everything is very chaotic in the universe, but there is a method to that.
No, but see, they're afraid now because now they know the universe is continually expanding. They can't explain that. It doesn't fit into the Big Bang. In other words, the Big Bang theory says it's going to expand and it's going to contract again. But it doesn't look like it's going to contract. It just keeps expanding. So they're confused. Okay, thank you very much. Glorious to Prabhupada. So we'll sit down and go over this and correct it. I want to actually, make a book, a little book about this.
existence of God for a software engineer.
Huh?
How to prove the existence of God for a software engineer.
Yes.
I think that's the
They're the new gods of the world.
And
This is what Prabhupada wanted. He wanted us to be able to use the language of the scientists.
we can talk about that.
Okay.
Maharaj, one more point, Maharaj.
Yeah.
As you had mentioned about chanting in bigger presence of devotees.
Yeah.
So I had, this year also I had experienced similar thing. One of my friend, I had invited few friends on this year Prabhupada disappearance day.
Yeah.
And they came before sometime here in temple, but on that day when they came and they had experienced so many devotees are chanting and dancing in so much ecstasy.
Yeah.
One of my friend, he said he was really looking for something like this, and he said to me, "Please come to my home. I want to chant, sing, and do kirtan like this." At my home. So that I was very, very surprised. Like it's a good surprise. But
No, because he was enthralled by what he saw. He said, "This is wonderful. Everyone's happy, they're chanting. There's a big group of people. It's not like 3 or 4 people.
it was full of ecstasy. Everyone was
Full of
dancing
ecstasy. Yes.
Like,
You want to preach, you have to have that. The atmosphere of the temple has to be so impelling that anybody walks in, right away they recognize, this is what I want.
and he came many, many years, but I was not expecting him to be that.
So is he still coming to the temple?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we are in touch with him, and he is very good.
Yeah.
They are in mode of goodness. But I was very, very surprised. Suddenly he said, "Yes, I want to do this kirtan."
People come to the temple on Sunday because they know there's going to be a Sunday feast. That Sunday feast should be full of ecstasy, right from the beginning. It's not that you just come for the Aarti and then leave right away, or eat and leave. They should be here for the whole program, starting at 5:30 in the morning. And then when anybody walks in, they see a large group of devotees in ecstasy, chanting, and they can feel the vibration, and they become influenced by it. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, that's how we also got interested.
Yeah,
When we initially came, because the chanting only.
yeah. Go ahead.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti
Pandamoi Savadana Mate.
His name is Sarva.
Jahara Prasade Bhai He Bhavatoriya Jai. Krishna Prapti Hoy Jahate.
Krishna Prapti Hoya.
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitit Koriya Kya.
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte Koriya Kya.
Arna Kori Ho Mane Asha.
Arana Koriya Mane Asa.
Shri Guru Charane Rati He Se Utama Gati.
Guru Mukha
Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha.
Ye prasade pure sarva
चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से.
चक्षुदान दिला जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से.
चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से.
दान दिला जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से.
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो.
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित.
प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते.
प्रेम भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाश जाते.
वेदिकाय जहाँ चरितो. श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनर बंधु.
गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनर बंधु.
लोकनाथ लोकेर जीवाना. हा प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया. ए बेजार गुशुक त्रिभुवना. शीला प्रभुपाद पतित पावना. जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद
Deva Jaya Deva.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine
Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Devane.
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachatya Tishatarine
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachatya Tishatarine.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Hare Bol Hare Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararajagachasta Tarasatara Shri Shri Mahari's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shri Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande. All glories to Assembled, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guru, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavana Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vestaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tanani Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pracharani Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatani. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Bhakti Gadadhar Vasudeva. The lotus feet of our spiritual master, the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great honor and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the world.